Folks, we're finally having some big motion on the David trial, and even before the hearings that are scheduled for next week, where we will hopefully be hearing everything that's going down, we're now getting a teaser as private investigator Steve Fischer has actually kind of given a little bit of a hint, some breadcrumbs about just how messed up some of this testimony from the grand jury that we're going to hear next week is going to be. And basically the court has filed a motion to unseal all the information in the grand jury, and if this is what I think it is, I think next week we're going to be finding out absolutely everything that all of David's friends, his managers, anyone that was involved, as well as the police, as well as the reporters, investigators, and other people that had interaction with Celeste. We're going to hear everything that everyone had to say at the grand jury, and David is going to be cooked. Okay, he's going to be hot grease. He's going to be a delicious full English breakfast, and I can't wait for him to be cooked. All jokes aside, this is about justice for Celeste, and it's coming. It is coming, people, and it is only right to protect the community and to let everybody know that we're not going to stand this type of behavior. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity, a famous singer, a rich guy. We will not tolerate this kind of heinous behavior in the community, and you cannot do this to the children. That's what this is all about. Let's hear what Steve has to say, because it's all going to come out soon. This is the update, and this came 2 days ago, right? I'm a little bit slow on this news. I was at the courthouse on a different trial today. There's a lot going on, all right? But I'm keeping you guys up to date as quickly as I can. I was also on a podcast today at No Jumper with David Lucas, the comedian. So, you know what I'm saying? That's just separate. Just go check that out if you want to see that. Shout out to Doughboy, Lush, and of course Moose Man, who were on that podcast with me today, but that's why I've not been super hot on the uploads. Anyway, this is Steve Fischer giving an update on the court's motion to unseal the grand jury information. So he's got this paperwork, all right? Don't know how he's got it, don't know who he got it from, but it is the paperwork. It's filed at the courthouse, all right? I've been at this address constantly over the last few weeks, and basically this is an order directing the investigative grand jury transcripts and exhibits to be unsealed, okay? It says, and stipulated protective order. So maybe not all of it will come out. Maybe some of it will come out. But what's interesting is this has some new details, some things that we haven't heard. We now know when the hearings were conducted. We know exactly when that was going on. We probably could have got some clues. We saw people going in and out of the courthouse. We saw, you know, Neo, David's best friend, David's best boyfriend, David's boyfriend, whatever you want to call him. He was up in there. You could have probably reverse engineered some of these dates, but now we know him officially. They want, okay, good cause having been shown, it's ordered that the following materials be unsealed for the limited purposes set forth below and no other purpose. So there's going to be some protections on them in the grand jury number GJ25-2616. The transcripts of testimony to the grand jury in investigative hearings that were conducted on November the 17th to the 21st, 2025. So for all that time, people are talking about the cops didn't do nothing. I don't think this was on anybody's radar back in November, okay? Still took them a bit of time, but 2 months on from when Celeste's body was found in the Tesla, they were having grand jury testimonies for what looks like 3 days. Then December on the 4th and 5th, then December on the 8th and 10th, and then February on the 4th and 6th, 2026. Was there more? There was more. Then February the 9th to the 11th, February the 20th, February 23rd, and I suppose at that point they said we've heard enough. And it took until April to finally have David in cuffs. This is very interesting. So it says exhibits marked and referenced during the above testimony, herein collectively referred to as the specified documents. The foregoing materials are unsealed to permit their use in a felony criminal trial, David's trial, only and only for the purposes permitted by this order. It's further ordered the specified documents are subject to the following provisions of this protected order. The specified documents may be disclosed only to counsel for the people and defense counsel for the record of People versus David Anthony Burke and their respective litigation teams defined herein. Does that mean the people, the reporters, people like me, people like SF Investigates? We might not be privy to these immediately, but what I do believe is it's possible that these will be released to the defense, and then specific details as well as new witness testimony will be taking place inside the courtroom as the prosecution deem fit to reveal that in the room when hopefully, if I'm not there, other investigative journalists will be there learning about this and disseminating that information to the public. So it defines defense counsel, specific people. My name's not on the list, all right? Blair Burke, Marilyn Bednarski, Regina Peter, and their respective law firms, Burke Brettler LLP and McLean Bednarski and Lit LLP, including employees, investigators, experts, consultants, and other representatives retained to assist in the defense of David Anthony Burke, all right? Whole bunch of David defenders. Okay. It's a bad one for you guys. The Council of the People or the People includes the LA County DA's office, including Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman and any agents, employees, investigators, experts, consultants, or representatives acting on behalf of this matter. Defense counsel should not disclose or disseminate the specified documents to any person or entity except as expressly authorized by this order, vis-a-vis not me. They're not going to be giving them to me. I'm not going to be getting them. I'm not going to be able to talk about them unless it's brought up in court, and I will rush to the outside and let you know what was said in them. Defense counsel may disclose such documents to agents and employees of their firm, investigators, consultants, etc. But anyway, let's hear what SF had to say, because he had a pretty scathing tweet or an X about this. He said, a motion was filed in the David case that reveals that the investigative grand jury met on 17 separate days. We're now only 10 days away from the preliminary hearing, and I look forward to hearing the witness testimony. We're also 10 days away from David understanding he will never experience freedom again for as long as he lives. At the status conference, the prosecutor said the preliminary hearing is expected to last no more than 3 days. This means the prosecution will likely call only the witnesses and present only the evidence needed to establish probable cause. So, what this means... Okay, excuse me, I'm a bit tired. What this means is the defense is going to be able to see what's in those grand jury testimonies, probably in their entirety. We're not going to get to see that. But then what's going to happen is over those 3 days, Beth Silverman and the magnificent prosecutors, they're going to be bringing witnesses, perhaps calling people back that were at that grand jury to say, okay, let them know what you told them. Tell the court, tell the public. And I guess it's a preliminary hearing, so I doubt, obviously a jury isn't being selected. That's a separate thing. So we will be finding out some details, and I wonder who's going to testify. There was talk when I was previously at the trial that there would be witnesses, and we're just waiting to find out who they are and what they're going to say. I'm honestly nervous. I'm nervous to find out what's going on. Okay. It's been a long day. I've been on a podcast. I've been at the courthouse. I've made 3 videos. There's a lot. Sorry. So he said, the prosecutor will only present the witnesses and evidence needed to establish probable cause, perhaps with a little extra to show David the strength of the case against him. I'm particularly interested whether anyone from David's management team or Neo will testify. I have no information indicating whether they'll be called to the preliminary hearing, or called at the preliminary hearing, or held for a possible trial. My personal opinion is the case will not ultimately go to trial. I believe he will accept a plea deal shortly before the scheduled trial date, preventing many of the most gruesome details from ever being disclosed publicly. Wow. Absolute wow. Okay, this is crazy. So, I do agree. I always thought that he might check himself out, if you know what I'm trying to say. I still think it's possible that he might check himself out, but I think it would be ridiculous. Based on all the evidence that we've seen without the grand jury testimony, the guy's freaking cooked. He's hot grease. So there is absolutely no way he's going to beat this. I can't even imagine himself putting himself through this trial. There's absolutely no chance. But he's a narcissist, right? He's obsessed with himself. He might be thinking there's a way I can OJ this shit. But I don't know. Okay? So someone says, it's my opinion that he's very much looking forward to a public spectacle and trial. It's fame one way or the other. Yes, I think he wants to be known as a famous killer. He said, important to note that the motion includes stipulation that unsealing of grand jury documents is only for the defense team and certain extensions of the Burke team. Yes, I don't see Belair giving the public any further documents unless it's to the advantage of her client. If somebody leaks those documents, that would be very interesting. I wonder if that would make a difference. Just like we're saying there were leaks from the medical examiner's office, and, that might create a defense for David to, point out or at least trash the credibility of the medical examiner's office. I wonder if, some sort of leaking of these grand jury testimonies would, be helpful to him. Is that something that his team might actually want to happen? I don't know. But saying, I highly doubt David will take a plea deal. We know enough. I don't see how it's going to get that much worse than what everybody already knows. It's not like he's going to have a career if he ever gets out. Even with a plea deal, he'll get out in his late 40s. His fans will be old enough to use their brains and see him for what he really is. He ruined his own life. So he's not getting any plea deal in which he's getting out. He will either get life without parole or the DP with these charges. And someone says, agreed, taking a plea deal means admitting guilt, which we all know is an ego death he's not willing to experience. I really hope we hear from Robert Morgan Roth about what he saw but didn't report. I hope so too. Yes, I wonder if we will ever also find out exactly who was the she who didn't show up for grand jury testimony, as reported by TMZ court corridor source back in December. Lane Cooperstein, Asia, Herrera, and even though we never heard anything to suggest it, could others have been summoned to testify? Besides David's parents and brothers who hid out in Texas to avoid appearance, what about Mike Zara, David's guitarist, and Rob's brother and business partner with Zara Brothers Travel, contracted by Mogul Vision? Speaking of Mogul, what about Josh Marshall? He's David's other manager and head of Mogul Vision and leaseholder on the house where David murdered Celeste. So many possible witnesses, if not co-conspirators, or with or without plea deals in hand. People saying, I think it's Lane Cooperstein. It was rumored that when David was out of town, that's who Celeste was staying with. But honestly, it could be anyone. That's my theory. Wait, what? Lane Cooperstein. It was rumored that when David was out of town, that's who Celeste was staying with. That's freaking insane. Honestly, it could be anyone. That's my theory, though, because allegedly Lane and Rob were having an affair. Rob is married. Jesus Christ. I can't verify that that's true. I don't know if that's true. Don't know. All right. Don't sue me. Allegedly, in my opinion. I agree. Lane makes sense because the she shared same lawyer with Rob, and even though the other factors could have played into that, the fact that Rob from Mogul and Lane from Interscope Darkroom were both professionally connected to David, and like you noted, personally connected too, it does seem like she must be Lane. And for anyone out there that somehow doesn't know about the Rob Lane affair, Abs is talking about, look up the Fonda Theatre pics. Yes, Lane or the other Celeste, everyone you mentioned, I feel will be called. This, come on. This is a bit harsh. Honestly, SF should be banned about being posted on these subreddits. It still makes me emotional how absolutely disgusting, disgraceful, and vile it is to lie for months on end about a significant part of the case, pretending you have key evidence, insinuating someone was part of the crime, Neo, on multiple news channels recklessly, for which he only stopped because legal documents showed he was wrong the whole time. I wouldn't be shocked if he was paid for those YouTube TV appearances, as how that usually goes. So can someone pay me for a YouTube TV appearance? Because I'm just sat here on my own doing my own thing. But what, they're getting paid to hop on those channels and just say the same shit? Like, I'm joking, but like, I wonder if he was getting paid. He was a private investigator that was actually paid for by the homeowner, the person that owned the property. But I wonder, was he also getting paid to do those YouTube TV appearances? And if he was, at the end of the day, he's the investigator on the case, you know. Oh dear. He deserves to be paid for his time. If he has the evidence and he has the knowledge and know-how about this case to speak on a public platform about it, then fair enough. But, okay, they're not feeling him. It says it's absolutely disgusting. Even to Neo, he misled the public the whole time, and that was the only genuine evidence that pointed to Neo having anything to do with the case. Wasn't great. Wasn't a great move, to be honest with you guys. Not the best thing to ever happen. It says, mouths like SF should be banned for the damage they do and have done for this case. Shame on him 100 times. Disgrace to the PI industry. Jesus. I dropped my hand. Drop my hand sanitizer. I might need that later. So, pause. All right, so it said, oh man, you're absolutely right. The man created so much drama and went on so many shows insinuating Neo was the last driver of the Tesla. And when the video was released, we couldn't make out who the driver was. I thought it looked a bit like David, to be honest. But they said, I felt so hoodwinked that day and my whole opinion of Neo did a 360. I think Neo will be a star witness. I think after Celeste was found, there was phone calls on the tapped phone. And when Celeste was named, David confessed to Neo. That's why I think Neo went to his mum's place. The arrest was all a show. And I bet David knew after that arrest he was fucked. Especially when Neo posted that he was legally fine. I feel kind of sad for Neo because imagine some old dude telling everyone that he suspects you're involved and you drove a car with a decomposed child in it. Then you realize not only is your good old friend a PDF, but he's also a murderer too. He got really so much hate online because of SF. SF goaded Neo to sue him, and I think Neo should. Listen, man. That's really how it went down, and the truth was the truth. I'm not going to tell him what to do, but SF, it's a lot of problems, all right? It's a lot of problems, and I wonder if he's got more evidence up his sleeve where he could say, well, I really did think it because of this, that, and the other that I had privileged information about. But anyway, I believe that there are so many opinions that my opinion is just opinion, nothing made as a fact, that he knew a lot and it should just be taken as that. He posted what he did. Nothing can be said to do or undo what he has done. SF's still involved. I hope Neo sues him. Oh my God. Going to shake society when he gets off. All right, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to downvote that nonsense. So TMZ reported on this. Apparently there was some more details, or TMZ kind of did a bit more of a sharp summary. I hate when it does that. TMZ, you need to fix your website. You're giving me a seizure. It's quite annoying. All right. 3 grand juries convened on at least 7 occasions. All right, David, there he is. All right, that's not how he was looking in court. Said his murder case has progressed slowly since Celeste's body was found in his Tesla last year, and it appears a grand jury convened on even more occasions than we knew. Here's the deal. A judge signed off on the limited unsealing of transcripts from a grand jury testimony given on 7 different occasions. The transcripts were taken over the course of 18 days, 5 days in November, 5 in December, and 8 in February. 3 different grand juries were called during the period, 1 in each month mentioned. The limited unsealing doesn't mean the public get the docs. No! They'll only go to the defense attorneys and prosecutors involved in the case. Here's the thing about that. I would like to know the details because I think it's really important to document the depraved actions of David. These might get released eventually. Who knows? Could be freedom of information. I don't know whether grand jury, sessions like that are eventually released years after the case. But here's the thing. I think that perhaps the reason that they're allowing these to be sealed is because that actually might push David to take the plea. Yes, he's cooked. Yes, it would be smart for him to try and keep this information out of the public eye. But when you really think about it, it actually is quite a smart bargaining chip for the state to essentially be able to say, here's what they said about you. You've been dying to know. It's really bad. You can see it. Your lawyer can see it. And you guys make a decision now. It's low key, like, it's like calling the bluff, basically saying, all right, here's all the shit that we got on you. Do you want to take a plea? And he might just take a plea and say, all right, if you take the death penalty off the table, life without parole, yeah, let me take that plea. It might happen. It could actually happen. Okay. So it said, while we know the grand jury met over the period of several months before David was arrested in April, and we weren't aware how many different times or for how long the grand jury heard testimony. Law enforcement sources told us shortly after David's arrest this was an investigative grand jury. Though our own Harvey Levin felt the strange events before and after his arrest indicated an issue with the prosecution's case. As you know, prosecutors claimed that David killed Celeste, who was a minor, in April 2025 after she allegedly threatened to reveal potentially compromising info about their illicit relationship. Disgusting. What was going on is actually disgraceful. But basically it says they say he invited her to his home, murdered her, chopped up the body, stuffed it in bags. It's horrible. It's horrific. So here's a little bit more backstory about everything that's been going down, okay? So I'm going to give you sort of a bit of a timeline and a bit of information. So as I said that I would do earlier, I'm going to backtrack and I'm basically going to reverse engineer what was actually going on whilst that grand jury was meeting. So the first session was November the 17th to the 21st, 2025. The first grand jury. They met for 5 days or over a 5-day span, and most likely this was with forensic investigators and detectives. And during and immediately after, reports would emerge that LAPD homicide investigators were treating David as a suspect in Celeste's death. So that's where that information came from, and that's probably what was heard.
Reports emerging from sources within the LAPD that musician David Anthony Burke, aka D4VD, David, is finally being viewed as a suspect in the murder of teen girl Celeste's death. As we all recall, her body found largely decomposed in his trunk. That vehicle and moved from one spot to the next within a ritzy neighborhood. Why? Because we know the owners of those mega mansions would report the filthy car as being parked outside their home. So someone was moving D4VD's Tesla inside Celeste's decomposing body. What has changed? What has happened? Why is D4VD, David, now reportedly being viewed as a suspect? Will this result in murder charges? How can this be without a toxicology report as of yet? But
so D4VD, man, they were still calling him D4VD back then. He is definitely C00KD. But anyway, this is the sort of information that was circulating around that time. Now, okay, she would later basically elaborate. And this would be around the sort of time when the news started to kind of pick up on this information about David having some sort of mysterious late-night trip to a remote part of Santa Barbara County.
Is the change in the timeline. Now we are learning that police sources believe Celeste was killed back in the spring. And bombshell tonight, police also looking at a road trip taken into a remote area by D4VD in the spring, where he stayed in that remote area for hours before returning back. I can only assume this information is coming from his nav system, or is there a rat within Burke's camp? Because tonight I definitely smell a rat.
So they're all talking about, I smell a rat. How did this information get out? Well, it sounds like this was coming from the grand jury, and somehow, some way, that information was then being disseminated to the public.
Start at the beginning, Dave Mack. What do you know?
Well, Nancy, we know that D4VD took a trip to Santa Barbara County, which is about 100 miles from the house that he was renting and taking about 2 hours to drive. So he takes this drive in the middle of the night in the spring of this year, and he stays there for a couple of hours. Now, they say remote area of Santa Barbara. If you've ever been to Santa Barbara, remote area can include probably 80% of the surrounding area. Big area, and you could actually be there and not be seen for a long time. He was there for hours. Now, they're also saying they believe, I'm talking about the police investigation is saying to this source, they believe Celeste died sometime in the spring of 2025. So we have Burke driving in the middle of the night to Santa Barbara County in the spring of 2025. And we have them saying Celeste died in the spring 2025. That's for starters, Nancy.
Here's the thing. At this point, the cops would have already found blood in his garage. They would have already got the information from his Tesla. They already had his Tesla on day one. And they knew about him taking the late night trip. They probably had his Uber, and they probably knew exactly when he killed her. But that wasn't disseminating. What was disseminating was late night Santa Barbara trip. Killed her in the spring. But really now we know that actually the cops knew the whole time. Now, interestingly enough, our man, okay, the much controversial Steve Fischer, SF Investigates, his name would pop up around another grand jury period, okay? Because he would actually speak openly about this, and it would be one of the first situations where he would speak publicly about this grand jury. And this would seemingly be around the sort of December 4th and 5th period when it was being convened. He would talk about this some days later. And so within a few days of that happening, Steve Fischer would put out a pretty fiery post on X where he would basically claim that he was actually hit with a public order and he was threatened with contempt if he did the wrong thing, said the wrong thing about the case. Is this what Asia was potentially dealing with? Well, how come Steve could tell us exactly what was going on? Even if he says, I can't talk about the case, but this is why. Why couldn't Asia do the same thing? I don't know, all right? It said Steve Fischer has been summoned to testify before the grand jury in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. They said what's done in the dark will come to light. Tomorrow morning, I have been ordered to appear in Los Angeles County Criminal Court for an order to show cause hearing for contempt. I was not served with a summons to appear in court. I was not given a complaint outlining the alleged contempt to respond to. There's no case number, and I do not appear anywhere on the court's public docket. I was handed a handwritten note from a deputy district attorney on Friday and told to appear Tuesday morning. A punishment hearing in criminal court that's not even assigned a case number, seemingly because they don't want this to be public information. Love me or hate me, this could concern you. This should concern you. The fact that this is happening in our criminal court system is terrifying. That's why I'm going public before the hearing tomorrow, which I will not be attending, so that the public and the press are aware of what's happening. Now, never really got a full explanation for this. All right, somebody just gave him a handwritten note. He could have written this himself, or some nutcase some nut job could have written this and handed it to him to fuck with him. I don't know. All right, that is where the courthouse is. But anyway, okay. He would kind of put some sort of history about case law, about how things that basically you are allowed to say and things that you aren't related to the grand jury. It sounds like actually, because this happened days after the grand jury hearing, December the 9th, 8:30, it sounds like he was actually potentially included in the December 4th and 5th grand jury hearing, and then he did some shit he wasn't supposed to do. He maybe was in contempt. He maybe said some stuff that he shouldn't have said, and he was told, hey, get your ass in here. And when he shared this, it was interesting, right? Because it basically said, oh dear. Can I zoom in? Basically that you take an oath of secrecy for a grand jury witness, all right? The effect is such witnesses are not prevented, if they so desire, from giving anyone information they might have relevant to the matter in connection with what they were subpoenaed, even though it's the same information they testified to before the grand jury, but the oath does preclude them from disclosing what testimony they or others gave in the room, or in other words, from revealing what took place. So it's basically saying, look, and this is relevant for Asia, because if we're going to give Asia the benefit of the doubt and say that this is what was going on, I got mad at itchy arm. I'm feeling all types of weird. I'm just super tired. I need to go to bed. They're basically saying the witness, basically what it's saying is that, there are some things that you can and can't say from the grand jury room. If you heard someone else testify something, you can't run around telling that all over town. What you can do is you can actually, if you knew some information that you told the grand jury, apparently it seems to suggest, all right, you can give anyone any information that you might have relevant to the matter in connection with what you were subpoenaed, even though it's the same information testified before the grand jury. But it doesn't mean you can't tell people. Let's say I saw David jaywalk, all right, and I got hauled into the grand jury. I can tell my homies, yo, I seen David jaywalking nonstop. And I can tell the grand jury I seen David jaywalking nonstop. But what I can't do is say, I just told the grand jury I seen David jaywalking. They know that. That's in the grand jury paperwork. And I can't say, and I heard Asia talking about that David's a gooner in the grand jury. I can't do that, okay? So it says the witness may freely discuss things they learned before or after the grand jury appearance if they choose so, as long as they don't indicate what was or that it was grand jury testimony or otherwise disclose the nature or subject of the grand jury. Basically saying you can tell people what you already know, but you can't tell everybody what went down in that room, even if what you already know was what went down in that room. And just, you know what I'm saying? If you already knew it, you can blab about it. That's why the Asia thing doesn't make any sense. Oh, she can't talk about what she knew. Is it really? Because it sounds like you can. You can't say I told the grand jury this, but you could say the same shit. Anyway, it says, how odd. Is this something that's common practice from the LAPD? I wonder what they're trying to do. This doesn't happen in LA. What he's claiming is super illegal. It doesn't make sense. They're saying it's an informal but stern warning because he might be on the verge of being charged. Basically, it sounds like maybe some of the information that was disseminated after he appeared, allegedly. I mean, if he says that it's cool to say that Neo was driving that car, then I could say Steve probably, maybe allegedly in some people's opinion, he might well have blabbed something, put something out there in the press, maybe one of his interviews in the days following the grand jury, and they said, you're getting a bit close to the sun. Someone give him the scarlet letter and said, hey, come back. Anyway, all right, the next set of leaks would come out on the hearings on December the 8th to December the 10th. That's when the grand jury met for another 3 days, while David's manager, Robert Morgenroth, was confirmed to have testified for approximately 2.5 days. He was talking nonstop. How did TMZ know all of this? All right? But anyway, they said a grand jury is hearing evidence in the death of Celeste Rivas, and the president of David's touring company revealed he was grilled by a deputy district attorney on why he didn't call the cops. He just wanted to keep touring.
Very interesting development in the case involving singer David and Celeste Rivas, the woman who was found dead in his car.
Child.
There is a grand jury that has been hearing evidence in this case, and it is clear to us, based on what we know with the LAPD and now what we know with the LA County DA, that David is in the crosshairs as a suspect. Something happened outside the grand jury room in the hallway that seems to rope in
really focus on
music executives who may or may not know something connected to all of this.
In fact, the person who spent most of the day on Monday testifying before the grand jury is a guy who is the head of David's record label and the tour company that operates his most recent tour. His name is Robert Morgenroth Jr. And he, like I said, spent most of the day on Monday before the grand jury. When he walked out of the grand jury, and this is what you're referring to, there was a conversation he had with his lawyer in a hallway.
Now, let's explain this. This is a kind of wide hallway outside of the criminal courts building, and the hallway echoes. And there were about a half dozen people around, and he was talking loud enough that people heard it.
Right.
And what was said, her name is Beth Silverman. She is a very seasoned prosecutor, very aggressive prosecutor.
And what he said to his lawyer in this hallway, again, loud enough for other people to hear, he said, She was grilling me about why I didn't call cops.
Why I didn't call cops. That is really, really interesting. Now, his response is also interesting.
Right. He said, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour.
So let's kind of unpack this. Number one, we can't say what he was supposed to call cops about, according to the DA. This could have to do with anything except for one thing. It seems that the DA believed that there was some criminal conduct for which cops should be called.
Right.
So TMZ had people standing in the hallway, and I was literally in that hallway, gosh darn, 12 hours ago. And, they're the wide hallways, in between the courtrooms. And that is very, very interesting that TMZ had a mole. I don't think you could be privy. I don't think you just walk into the random investigative grand jury. I don't think that's how it works. Otherwise, I probably would have been there. But essentially, what they're saying is that, this was big testimony from David's management. And, he said he was trying to carry a crack on one tour. Just wanted to keep going on the tour. It wasn't my job to stop him dating a minor. Okay. So that is when the next date would take place. And apparently, during the next grand jury testimony hearing, an unidentified female witness would apparently fail to appear. And that was the one that was rumored to be Lane Cooperstein. They appeared to have the same lawyer as Robert Morgenroth. And this was when that was circulating after the next date.
Well, TMZ reports that Beth Silverman allegedly went into the courtroom hallway and started talking to attorney Evan Jenis. Jenis apparently represents Morgenroth. And this is where Silverman allegedly told Jenis that she is going to petition the judge to issue a body attachment. So apparently a legal mechanism to compel a witness, here an unidentified female, to testify before the grand jury. That this person would be taken into custody and brought into this grand jury hearing. Why? Because reportedly this witness just didn't show up to testify. Now, as TMZ reports, they don't know who this person is. They comment that it's interesting. By the way, they say female, so we don't know if we're talking a woman, a minor, we don't know, but female. But TMZ, it's interesting, they're seemingly suggesting that Jenis may represent both Morgenroth and this unidentified female witness. We don't know the apparent connection between the two of them, but obviously this is noteworthy if true.
It's definitely noteworthy, and of noteworthy alleged person this may well have been, possibly, in some people's opinion, allegedly. Boom. It was Lane Cooperstein, allegedly, in some people's opinion. All right, this was a picture of her behind the curtain, a very ironic and symbolic place for her to be. Okay, so it's all connected, all right? A lot of people thought that was her. Interestingly enough, I mean, that was the first time I'm hearing it, but I was hearing people in them comments talking about Celeste was staying with Lane Cooperstein when David wasn't around. What on earth? If that's true, this woman needs to be, at the very least, hauled in front of some authorities to answer some questions, at the very least, if that's true, which we don't know if it is. Okay, it's been put across. All right, the Doheny location where David was staying was exposed. Celeste's hideout, aka where he did the controversial R-word in kids stream with Celeste, the cooking stream. Curiosity spiked for the identity. Who was the woman managing David's streams from that house behind the black curtain? All right, I dug into her previously too. Who is this mystery woman behind the symbolic curtain, the black curtain, the dark room? All right. Anyway, the Super Sleuth caught her name in this interview where he showed his phone. She's part of the Secret Ninjas group chat. Her name is Lane Cooperstein, the general manager of Darkroom. She spearheaded the development of multi-platinum up-and-comer David, including securing a performance at Valentino Men's Fashion Week and his tour announcement with SZA. In the past year, she's built an in-house creator marketing team and an international marketing... And the sentence just ends. I'm sure there's more to it. Why it matters, she was around the house. She probably has knowledge of Celeste. I don't know for sure, but we're seeing other comments now talking about Celeste was bunking up with her. I don't know if I believe that, but hey, let's see how that all shakes out. Now, one of the stronger theories, okay, there were other names that were put forward. Another stronger theory of who that might have been was Bella Bowman. This was identified as a former day-to-day tour manager and project manager at Mogul Vision. Also, the person standing close to Celeste at the Fonda Theatre on June 27th, 2024, day one, is Bella Bowman. I've never heard... Actually, this is the first I'm really hearing about her in this comment that we pulled up. Shout out to Ginny the Ween for spotting that. David has her on his Telegram list. She was working as a day-to-day tour and project manager at Mogul Vision, Josh Marshall's company, and is often mistaken for Lane Cooperstein, the general manager at Darkroom, David's label. Ooh. Last seen September 9th is interesting. Didn't notice this. One day after she was found. That's so sus. Wait. What? Bella Mogul Vision, last seen September 9th, 2025. Bella, you're gonna have to answer some questions. You're gonna have to answer some mother effing questions. What on earth? You were last seen when they towed the Tesla. Are you shitting me? That's crazy. That's insanity. What on earth? Last seen September 9th is interesting. Whoa. Ooh, another one. Last seen April 17th, 2025. Very telling. Wait, is that Celeste? So people actually knew. People worked out the murder date. Wait a hot minute. Bella, Josh Marshall, Zetra, Rob, future wifey. Whoa! And Asia, you were last seen not too long before that as well. We ain't giving up on you, Asia. That is mental. Wait a hot minute. Hang on. Click the wrong thing. Future wifey, Celeste. April 17th, 2025. And she was killed 6 days later, allegedly. Wow. So people actually believe they worked it out. I believe Celeste was killed shortly before the release of Withered. This person was spot on. What did you know? Sims Creator 777. You was fucking on point. The last seen date of April 17 is a useful clue, suggesting she likely died between 17 and 2025. Wow. That was spot on. That's crazy. During this period, David displayed unusual behavior, even breaking down in tears during a live performance. The emotional shift may indicate that something significant. Can I even comment on this? Can I even comment? Follow comment? Can I give I might have to give this an award. Is there any point? That is crazy. They were spot on. And wait, did this person say, how does it suggest that those are the dates after she was seen? Doesn't it suggest before? Mental. Okay. So anyway, the grand jury continued on, and the next date that was brought up would be February the 4th, 2026. And this is when David's friend Neo Langston appeared appeared in front of the third grand jury and testified for approximately 30 to 40 minutes after being dragged from Montana and arrested and forced to testify, which should have happened to David's family.
Yeah, lots of people were on site. Lots of people were leaking information to primarily TMZ. So I would take it with a grain of salt, but it does seem highly likely that he was there for the grand jury. And I would say that he was only there for about 40 minutes. That seems to be solid information that is not really up for debate. Yeah. Now, people say that 40 minutes is very suspicious because, first of all, why would LAPD go through the hassle of going to Montana, arresting him, bringing him back to LA, unless they think that he's going to be of high probative value? Like he's going to provide some sort of information, some sort of witness statement that can put David Anthony Burke at the scene of the crime. Like he must know something. Mm-hmm. Even if he doesn't think he knows, he might know without understanding what it means. Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, that day, he might not know what that day means, but like, oh, May 5th, he told me he couldn't do something, and then he had this cut on his arm. Like he could know something without knowing he knows. Mm-hmm. But he finally gets to LA. He's in there for 40 minutes, and he says, what? We don't know. 40 minutes? Is he talking in 5 times speed? Or is he not saying anything at all?
There was rumors that maybe he'd pled the 5th the whole time. Now, there were more days, 2 days after this, February the 5th and 6th. Okay, we possibly heard from more of David's friends, but we didn't really hear any other leaks from that other than the fact that Neo was in court. Now, on February the 9th and 10th, that's when the grand jury met again, while David's parents and his brother were fighting their California subpoenas in Texas, and ultimately they never appeared in court. Disgraceful.
In 2 big ways. So the first of them is that David's parents and his brother Caleb, the 3 of them, Caleb is now 18, they fight the subpoena. They're in Texas and they file a petition of habeas corpus contending that the court's order summoning them to testify in California violates due process. So this is public. Mm-hmm. So like they have to reference the grand jury investigation and they have to reference that David is the target of the investigation.
That's how people found out?
Yeah. So that's how they're like, oh, we can confirm for sure there's grand jury investigations into David. Because otherwise it's sealed. And then Neo gets arrested and it's kind of like, Okay, now we can like definitely confirm again, once more, that this is happening.
But they did end up going?
No.
The families? No?
No, yeah.
Oh.
They've still been fighting it out in court.
Okay.
Yeah. So the DA's office fought telling the judge in Texas. I would say if a car with a dismembered, decomposing body is registered to your home address, because David's car was registered to Texas, you should expect to be questioned by the authorities about that. And that's what this is, Judge. I'm asking you to find that the family witnesses are necessary and material, and I'm asking you to find that it will not cause them undue hardship. As for the Burke parents, their attorney argues on their behalf. If the DA needs parents to testify, then they have no case. In my opinion, they're just doing that for harassment purposes. If a proper subpoena was issued, they would have already spoken. The attorney has stated that the Burke family has been somewhat aware that an arrest was a possibility, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it happened, right? The arrest happened. Shout out to Rotten Mango. She did some really great reporting on this and sort of some big deep dive breakdowns, which were very, very interesting and useful. And it's kind of good to just refer back to them to kind of get some of these key bits of information when we need them. But the next situation where we finally got some of the last pieces of information was on February the 20th and 23rd, 2026, when the grand jury reportedly reported for another session. And this was after Celeste's passport card was reportedly found on the side of the road in Santa Barbara. And Mark the Shark, shout out to him. I met him at courthouse a couple times reporting on this case, and I know he'll be back for more hearings, I believe. So hopefully I'll see him soon if I can make it. But he visited the location where the ID was found in Santa Barbara with his drone to basically see exactly what was going on up there and to have a speculation of what on earth was David doing up there.
See this right here? This looks like, I forgot to check this area. So when I go back, I want to see what that is. It looks like a drainage or something that's like a manhole or something. And I kind of was like looking at it. I'm like, what is that? But it looks like it's a hole or like a manhole or something like that. See, that kind of zoom in on that, and then I kind of forgot about it because I saw the other one, the other watering hole. So I forgot about this one until now. Sub David is guilty. See, there's my truck. That's where they found the passport. So I'm just kind of seeing around what's around here. Seeing if I spot any trash, see if I spot anything, chainsaw or something, chainsaw box or plastic bags, just something out of the ordinary. And on my last video, I did go down over here on this side and we saw a tarp, which was freaky, like freaked me out on this area, but it was nothing. It looked like it was a tent or something like that. But yeah, I mean, if David's coming over here 3 times, and even in the document said he came to the same area 3 times, then he's just disposing of evidence. So I'm wondering if law enforcement got all the evidence, or what they have. It's going to be interesting. Does it have steps? No, I don't think it does. I'm not sure. I don't think so. See, there's another one right there. But the other one looked open. See, this one looks like it has a like a mesh on it, because you can tell from the camera. Be interesting to see what's in there. What's up, Tiva Tanvo? You're painting? Right on. But yeah, this is the area, and as you guys can see, it's pretty remote. But there's a lot of cars, there's a lot of traffic, and even I was surprised even too when at night there was more cars than I expected.
So Mark kind of dug into this, right? But this was in direct response to the fact that it came out that Celeste's ID card, or her passport card, was found at the side of the road here. I believe that was some information that maybe kind of trickled out, around this time. That's when we heard about the passport card being found. Then we'd already heard about this supposed trip to Santa Barbara. But bear in mind, when that first grand jury link up happened, the passport card hadn't been found. I believe the passport card was actually found by a roadside worker in January 2026, and then we start hearing about these details as the next grand jury is in session at the end of February. It goes dark after that, and that is basically when, you know, we don't hear anything for a month plus, and then David's arrested in April. So I do think that this is a very, very fascinating situation where we're probably not going to find out exactly what was in those grand jury testimonies, but we probably will find out some of the additional things that were actually... We're probably going to find out some of the things that were said in that grand jury through direct witness testimony during the trial dates, the preliminary hearings next week. It's very likely that David is going to take a plea because he doesn't want these grand jury testimonies getting out. Once he sees how bad they are, he might say, yeah, fuck this. I'm just going to take the plea and find out. I'm just going to take the plea. I'm going to get this stuff sealed forever, and hopefully it never comes out. The only problem with that is if he takes his plea, all of those people... And this is just like what I said to Asia. All of those people, no one can have the excuse of, well, I can't talk about the situation anymore. All of those, if David takes a plea and he gets sentenced to life and that's the end of that, end of matter, what will ultimately happen is all of those people that are involved, that knew him, that were around him, that had something bad to say at the grand jury, they're probably free to just hop out and, you know, do their documentary interview, do their YouTube channel, do their live stream, just tell the truth about what happened. So... I think that also is a good argument for why he might not take a plea, because at the end of the day, if he's thinking, if I take a plea and I get this grand jury testimony that's so embarrassing and shocking, you know, swept under the rug, there's nothing stopping those same people that testified from just blabbing all that information to the public later on. Is that who I think it is? That's what that noise was. But anyway, okay, I'm a little bit tired, so I'm going to wrap it up there, okay? I will keep you guys posted. I'm not going to be around. I might take a little day off in the next week. I'm going to have a little break. I'm going to have a little vacation. What is this little guy doing? I'm going to have a little vacation. I'm going to take a little day off probably at some point in the week. But I will be back hopefully for some of those David dates. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm a little bit burnt out, a little bit tired, so gonna just kind of like work things out from there. Obviously, I was at the courthouse today reporting on a different trial, and go and check the video out on that if you didn't get a chance to. So anyway, I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching this one, and as soon as I know what is going on with this case, I will let you guys know. I'm extremely distracted by that tail. What are you doing? What are you doing? You gonna come back this way? He's coming back. He's gonna step on the air. Ah. What are you doing? What do you do? You look spooky. You look very spooky on that light. You're a spooky man. You're a spooky guy. Yeah. I go to bed. All right, you can say goodbye. You can sign off the video. Let them know. So tell them something spooky, okay? That's the end of that video. All right, see you guys later. Bye.